We always think about food as just fuel, right? But what if some of that fuel is actually feeding a hidden fire inside your body? Today, we're going to dive into that surprising link between what's on your plate and how you feel, and how you can actually use food to put out that flame.
So, let me just ask you, does this sound familiar? You ever just feel off? You know that tired all the time feeling? Those little aches and pains in your joints? Or maybe just this low-level anxiety that you can't quite put your finger on?
Yeah, it's so easy to just blame stress or say, oh, I didn't sleep well. But what if the real culprit is hiding in plain sight, right on your dinner plate? We're talking about something called chronic inflammation. And it's like this silent fire that can be fueled by the foods we eat every single day.
So here's the game plan for today. First, we're going to define what this hidden fire of inflammation actually is. Then we'll meet the inflammatory five, the usual suspects. We'll get into a little bit of the science of how food fuels this fire. Then I'll share a super simple rule to live by, and we'll wrap up with some easy first steps you can take.
All right, let's start at the beginning. What exactly is this hidden fire we keep talking about? Okay, think of inflammation as your body's own personal firefighter. You get a cut or a bug, and that system rushes in to handle the problem, put out the fire, and heal you. That's a good thing. But what happens when that fire alarm never, ever stops ringing? Well, that's chronic inflammation. It's this low-grade fire that's just smoldering in the background day in and day out.
And the thing is, the clues are really subtle. We often just brush them off as, oh, I'm just getting older. But that constant fatigue, the achy joints, the brain fog, even things like anxiety or GI issues, they're not random. They could actually be little signals from your body telling you that this internal fire is burning.
So, if our bodies are stuck in this constant state of alert, what's triggering the alarm over and over again? Well, a huge part of the answer is found right on our plates. Let's take a look at the main offenders.
All right, meet the inflammatory five. This is basically the most wanted list for your well-being. We're talking about foods that are secretly fanning those flames. Things like processed meats, those refined white flour carbs, tons of snack foods, sugary drinks, and of course, anything that's been deep fried.
Now, when you look at this list, you start to see a pattern, right? There's a common thread that connects all of these foods, and it's really their industrial baggage. Tons of added sugars, unhealthy saturated fats, and just a whole lot of processing that strips out all the good stuff.
Okay, so we know which foods are the problem, but the really big question is how? How do these foods actually, on a biological level, cause inflammation? Let's get into the science. Let's start with sugar. It's kind of the sweet deceiver. You might think, oh, natural cane sugar is better for me than high fructose corn syrup. But the science? It tells a different story. A fascinating study from UC Davis found that it doesn't really matter. Your body treats them pretty much the same. Both led to more liver fat and made people less sensitive to insulin in just 2 weeks. And this constant overload of sugar can have some really serious consequences. For instance, a study in the journal Public Health Nutrition found a direct link between kids drinking more sugary drinks and a higher risk for something called metabolic syndrome. And that's not one thing. It's a whole cluster of dangerous conditions like type 2 diabetes and fatty liver disease.
But why is this stuff so hard to stop eating? I mean, have you ever tried to have just one potato chip? It's because these foods are often what scientists call hyperpalatable. They are literally engineered with the perfect, irresistible combo of fat, sugar, and salt to hijack your brain's reward system. It's designed to make you crave more and more, even when you're not hungry.
And this quote from Dr. Carlos Andre, it just sums it up perfectly. Our bodies have evolved over millennia to process whole, natural foods, but these heavily processed ingredients, they're like foreign invaders to our cells, and our bodies often react by, you guessed it, triggering those inflammatory pathways.
It really all comes down to balance. See, our bodies need a healthy ratio of different types of fats, specifically omega-6s and omega-3s. But our modern diet, which is packed with refined vegetable oils, has thrown that ratio way out of whack. And this imbalance basically flips a switch that turns on your body's inflammation response.
Now, let's clear up a common myth here. You hear a lot of people say that seed oils themselves are bad, but it's not that simple. The real problem is the imbalance. We're getting way too many omega-6s and not nearly enough anti-inflammatory omega-3s, which you find in things like fatty fish. We need those omega-3s to restore the balance and calm everything down.
Okay, I know that was a lot of science, so you might be thinking, what on earth am I supposed to do with all this information? How do we turn this into a simple strategy that actually works in real life?
Well, it turns out, probably the best advice ever given on the subject is also the simplest.
The author, Michael Pollan, boiled it all down to just 7 words. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. Let's just unpack that for a second.
So that first part, eat food. It sounds obvious, right? But what he means is to eat real food, things that are as close to their natural state as possible. So an apple, not an apple-flavored fruit snack. A great rule of thumb is the great-great-grandmother test. If you showed it to her, would she even recognize it as food? If the answer is no, it's probably heavily processed.
And look, the really good news here is that this does not require some radical overnight diet overhaul. The real key to success is to just start with small, totally manageable steps.
Okay, first step, you gotta become a sugar detective. Seriously, sugar loves to hide on ingredient labels under all these different names. The CDC says to look for anything that ends in O's, like sucrose or fructose, but also all the syrups, honey, molasses, it's all just added sugar. And remember, ingredients are listed by weight, so if sugar is one of the first few ingredients, you know that product is packed with it.
And this is where it all becomes really doable. Don't try to change your entire diet tomorrow. Just pick one thing. Seriously, just one. Today, just grab one packaged food from your pantry and actually read the ingredients. Tomorrow, maybe add one extra vegetable to your lunch. Next week, try swapping your usual white bread for a whole grain version. They're baby steps, but believe me, they add up big time.
So I'll leave you with this one final thought. You now have the knowledge. You have the tools. The only question left is, what's the one simple, manageable swap that you can make today to start taming that hidden fire?